Welcome to the Pathways to Stillness podcast series. I'm Dr. Gary Irwin Kenyon. I'm a gerontologist and a Tai Chi teacher. I decided to create this series after receiving many heartfelt responses to my book, Pathways to Stillness, Reflect, Release, Renew, which is available on Amazon, Indigo, and Friesen Press, and in audiobook form from Audible and iTunes. You're also invited to check out my website, which is pathwaystostillness.org. As with my book, this podcast invites you to a conversation about how it's possible to discover your own pathways to meaning, peace, and stillness, even during these times of heightened anxiety, confusion, and rapid change. We are helped on our own journey to stillness by listening to the wisdom in each other's stories. Chapter 6 in my book is titled Finding Your Way, and that gives you guidelines as well as examples of others who have discovered meaning and stillness in their lives. Previous guests have included Thomas Moore, who among other things wrote Care of the Soul, and Dr. Bill Randall, co-founder of Narrative Gerontology. In this series, I'm in conversation with Dr. Bill Cook. Dr. Cook is a longtime friend, colleague, and kindred spirit. Bill wears several hats as a clinician, bioethicist, and director of the Iris Center, where, among other things, he teaches a course on mindfulness and conscious living. Bill has worked with and trained with such well-known teachers as Jon Kabat-Zinn and Jack Kornfield. His course has been a life changer for me. I've taken the course twice, and it's been very, very significant in my life. And I know for many others here in Atlantic Canada and elsewhere. We're extremely fortunate to have his medical practice at the Iris Center supported by our healthcare system. You can find out more about the Iris Center, IRIS like the flower, at www.iriscenter.ca. In this episode, I explore with Bill the evolution of the Iris Center, the benefits of mindfulness practice, and his vision of a softer future. From there, if you would like to talk a little bit about the evolution of the Iris Center and maybe
Sure.
Wendy's involvement, and if you have anything else you would like to address, please just interrupt me and let me know.
Right. Well, just to sort of continue a little bit of the narrative around my own connection and working with myself, when I made the shift from the plastic surgery practice to the mind-body medicine practice, that happened prior to my knowing anything about Jon Kabat-Zinn and full catastrophe living and mindfulness in that set, if you'd like. And I organized that mind-body medicine practice based on the training that I had done with Herbert Benson at Harvard, but also out of my yoga knowledge and my yoga training. So the first 3 or 4 years of that mind-body medicine practice, before I had sort of learned about the mindfulness and done the MBSR course, it was really a yoga-based undertaking. And as I learned about the MBSR and understood the mindfulness and attention and awareness and those sorts of things at a deeper level through that work, I integrated all of that into the program that I had already generated. And right from the very beginning, I called the program that we were sharing Mindfulness and Conscious Living. So we've had that name or that terminology for the program that we share. It's an 8-week training, 3 hours each session that also incorporates some cognitive behavior work. Initially, I just did that out of rented space. I didn't have an office for it. But again, here's an interesting development from the universe, if you'd like. I live on the river, not too far from where our center is. And since I was a youngster, I've loved canoeing. So I spend quite a bit of time when I can in the canoeing season out on the Wollastock River, the St. John River, paddling around. And this one day I was downriver and paddling back upriver on the north side of the river where we live. And I saw this chap with a truck down near the water where there's a bit of a ramp coming into the river. So I pulled up and just got out and had a chat with him. And well, that property is now where our Irish Center is. As it turned out, this 29 acres that this chap had been a dairy farm for several generations. And they had stopped dairy farming there years back. And he had been topsoiling. All of this land is what we call interval land. It floods in the spring. So there's lots of fresh alluvial soil being laid down every spring when the floodwaters come, or the freshets come. And for a number of years, a couple of decades or more, this chap had been taking topsoil off the land. And it had come down to a lot of clay, so there were lots of little pools of water that were hanging there. And eventually, he put it up for sale, and Wendy and I were able to purchase the property. And right from the very beginning, when I met him in around 2000, there was this image or vision of, oh, this would be a great place to have a healing center, a great place for people to come and connect with nature and those sorts of things. And since we've purchased the property, we built a building for the practice, medical practice, to be housed in. And we've done a lot of work on creating some walking trails, as you pointed out at the very beginning. But most of the work has been done by the beaver. There's a natural artesian spring in this community and that creates a wetlands and a stream that flows down into a larger stream called the Nashwauk Stream that flows into the St. John River. And we just let the beaver do what they want to do, and there's dams here and there, and water backs up. So there's a wonderful wetlands that the beaver have created. And we've been able to support that by working on the trails, keeping the trails open, putting signage up, making it only for walking, not for anything that's going to tear it up. And ultimately, we've put it in an outside greenhouse where we have a studio inside the greenhouse for this spring, summer, and fall practice. And we've created a 65-foot labyrinth for walking practice and meditation. So we're really, really happy with this property. And the interesting thing about it, we discovered several years later, when we were approached by our First Nations community about using the property for a ceremony. And the ceremony was called the Wabanaki Convergence Ceremony. And the convergence refers to the fact that the St. John River, the Wollastock River, is tidal. So the life-giving waters flow from all the tributaries of the St. John down the St. John to the Bay of Fundy, and then the tide brings it all back up. And where we're located, where the property is right around the end of the tide. So in Maliseet, there's actually a word for the end of the tide of the river. So they wanted to hold their ceremony at the end of the tide. So it's a water ceremony offering gratitude for the water that brings life to everything. So we didn't have any knowledge of any of that when we purchased the center and the property and developed the work. But we're very, very very, very humbled by it all, and it feels really an important connection for us.
Yeah, it completes a circle, really, of
it
sacred space, and
yeah.
I'm aware that the course that you teach, and I know there are other activities at the Iris Center that I don't know when you sleep actually, but um,
Well, COVID's given us a break for that. Yeah.
I know when I took the course, you have this wonderful day long meditation, which when I took it was we were able to have it outside in that greenhouse, which was a lovely day and very very peaceful. And then you also have every second Monday the meditation and kind of check-in session, which is really generous of you, I think, because you take the course, and then for those who are interested, you can keep up. You can keep up with the insight and the inspiration and the enthusiasm through that second every second week
Yeah.
check-in.
Yeah. So we call that the maintenance program. So we offer that opportunity for people. Aside from the medical practice with the mindfulness and conscious living program and the maintenance program, we up until the time of COVID, there were regular yoga classes being done. Wendy and I both teach yoga, and we had a couple of other yoga teachers that were here. There was a prenatal class that was being done fairly regularly. And we would have weekend retreats with meditation teachers that we would discover and bring in. And Wendy herself is uh, connected with the spiritualist community, and we even had Suzanne Giesman and other mediums and spiritualists here for training workshops and those sorts of things as well. So we're hoping that as COVID peters out, that we can get back to some of the broader things outside of the medical practice that we've narrowed into over the last 2 years.
Yeah, Wendy, from what I see, plays quite a significant role in the center, in the course, and I mean that particular course, but also her other activities there. You make a wonderful pair couple.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think we do complement each other. I would agree. Wendy's a yoga teacher and a soul midwife, and right now she's been in the greenhouse for the last 3-4 weeks planting seeds, which she grows to the point of being able to give away to the local food kitchen and food community, and to people that have community gardens and those sorts of things. So she's got maybe 3,000 seedlings started down in the greenhouse right now. Yeah.
You both have amazing energy.
Yeah. Well, Wendy more than I do. I can't keep up with her. So
You've mentioned some of the benefits for yourself of mindfulness and your change in your path. Can you say a bit more about the benefits of the program that you've noticed from, well, perhaps yourself more, and also the patients that come to your practice?
yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, I'll say that after I came back from that first training with John Kabat-Zinn, if you speak with Wendy, Wendy will tell you there was something different about me. I'm not sure that I'm able to label what that was particularly, but she was clear that that training had made some change in me. Just that one training. Maybe I was just ripe for it. I don't know. And the interesting thing is that for many people as they go through the 8-week training here with us, it's nice to see changes in them as well. As I reflect back on it, one of the things that I do think changed for me was that in my early years as a scientist and as a medical scientist and a surgeon, I had a pretty black and white view of things. Another way of saying that was I was pretty judgmental. I had lots of opinions. And my perspective was narrowed by those judgments and opinions. That began to change for me when I started my bioethics training. And when I started to study some philosophy, it became clear as I did that work that things aren't so black and white, that there are, for the most part, lots of shades of gray. And I think maybe what happened in that very first training with John Kabat-Zinn is that intellectual understanding that there are shades of gray and things aren't black and white, and that judgment is a narrowing of one's perspective, that I think went from my head to my heart. So it became evident in the way I lived, not so much in the way I thought. And as a consequence of that, I think I became more patient and less reactive. I think I became more understanding of myself and others and more compassionate for myself and others. And interestingly, those are the same sorts of things that people comment on when they've been through the program as sort of changes that they might see within themselves, some version of that. Incidentally, I don't know whether you know, but I'm actually now in the process of researching this with one of your colleagues at St. Thomas University, where we're taking a deeper look, a deeper dive, if you'd like, into what's people's experience when they go through this type of training. So we're really excited about that and looking forward to what that might tell us from both the routine sort of qualitative look at things, but also the opportunity to sit down with people in small focus groups and really connect with them, much like you're connecting with me now, to find out what happened. From a clinical perspective, the research actually tells us that programs like ours seem to foster an increased cognitive and emotional flexibility in people, and sort of a stronger capacity to regulate emotions and not be so reactive. And essentially that's what I think we're finding as well, and I'm hoping that the research will show that to be the case as well.
As with the program with John Kabat-Zinn, I think people come to you with various conditions that the regular medical system doesn't seem to accommodate too well, like, and I'm speaking partly out of personal experience, but with anxiety or chronic pain, PTSD, other kinds of intractable sort of conditions where people really need help and are not getting enough of it from another option. And I think that's part of the wonderful choice that you offer folks.
Yeah, what's really critical, I think, and what I think the medical system understands intellectually but hasn't been able to fully accommodate yet, is that we're in essence beings, if you'd like, that have a physical domain, an energy domain, a psychological, emotional, mental, cognitive domain, and spiritual domains, and that our health and wellness is dependent on all of those domains. And our medical system has really done a good job at focusing in on sort of acute health issues and providing treatment and management for acute illnesses and injuries. But it hasn't learned how to expand its role in that holistic aspect that comes along with chronic health issues. And I think that the nice thing about mind-body lifestyle medicine is that it's really taking a look at the holistic understanding of health and wellness and looking at these other domains and providing people assistance in exploring these other domains within themselves, because they feed directly into, not indirectly, but directly into how we are.
Do you agree one of the basic principles of all of this really is moving? I was thinking when you were talking about how your own changes took place, and I was thinking about this, and now what you're just saying, that a lot of it is about acceptance, letting go, giving up some control, those kinds of things that are not culturally valued as much in our culture. But would you agree that that's kind of what we need to do? We need to say, look, I don't know what to do about this. I can't do it anymore, and I can't do it alone, sort of thing.
Yes, indeed. Our natural tendency, of course, is to want to manage and control everything, and to try to make the world be the way we want it to be, rather than us adapting to the way the world is. And the efforting that we put into that type of control actually is damaging in the long haul. In the very short term, it can be helpful to get us from here to there, for example. But over the long term, it does us damage, I think. Interestingly, one of the quotes from Full Catastrophe Living that I share regularly with patients and in our groups, and has been so meaningful to me. Can I read it?
Definitely.
John writes these two sentences: to bring calmness to the mind and body requires that at a certain point we be willing to let go of wanting anything at all to happen and just accept things as they are and ourselves as we are with an open, receptive heart. This inner peace and acceptance lie at the heart of both health and wisdom. And so that's the work of being mindful, and that's the invitation that we're all called into. The trouble, of course, is that it's counterintuitive and very counter to the addiction we have to thinking.
I like to ask our guests, what about some thoughts about the future, sort of the grand picture, general vision, maybe advice for those coming up behind you in the world, that sort of thing?
There's so much and so little that needs to be said. I'll start with the little that needs to be said. I think if we can all just learn to be kind to ourselves and to each other and to the world, and to the natural environment around us, that will probably make the biggest difference we would ever imagine. To help with that, to be a little broader, I think that the work, and this comes basically from my own personal experience, but also from what I would understand from the traditional literature and practices and modern science, is that if we can put some effort into learning to grow our perspective so that we can make use of the ego, if you'd like, as a tool rather than defining ourselves as that. It can be very, very helpful. And of course, that's not advice that is easy to follow, but it's not advice that's made just for individuals. It's advice for the community that we call society, or for countries. A lot of the difficulties we're seeing, now in Eastern Europe are related to a very narrow perspective.
Yeah, and going back to what the quote that you just read, we're at this time in the world, we're certainly being invited to let go and accept, and as you say, be kind to each other, regardless of those other what we take to be very unpleasant things happening in the world. And it seems to me that's what a lot of I follow some other spiritual teachers here and there on Twitter and so on, or read things, and that seems to be the message from many of those folks now, is we just, this is what we can do. We can't control or fix it all, but we can act in this way.
Yeah, and if each of us as an individual takes on the intention to be kind, no matter what, there'll be a ripple effect on that. Your kindness will have an impact on you, your health and wisdom, as John pointed out, and your kindness will have an impact on people around you, and that impact will have an impact on people around them. We just have to, again, it's something that you have to make it an intention around, and then purposefully work with it.
Yeah. So there is something we can do.
It may not be an actual physical action, but it's an energy nonetheless that has an impact in the world that is probably more profound than the physical action.
This has been quite very, very fascinating, and I really thank you for coming and sharing. I think as my hat as a gerontologist, I think you're someone, and I know aging. I don't like the word successful aging because it sort of means you can fail at your own aging.
Yeah, aging.
But I do like the word meaningful aging, and from my point of view, you're someone who is aging meaningfully. I also know that term itself needs to be talked about carefully because not everybody does or believes that for themselves. But when you do, it's a gift for sure. And I think I see you that way.
Thank
and
you.
you share that with those around you in very practical ways. And so I thank you for your wisdom and for the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Gary. And likewise, I loved your book, and I would encourage people to pick that up and explore your teachings as well.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you for listening to the Pathways to Stillness podcast series. My book, Pathways to Stillness, Reflect, Release, Renew, is available on Amazon, Indigo Chapters, and Friesen Press. It is also available in audiobook form from Audible, Amazon, and iTunes.